police in Sydney and Brisbane conducted the biggest anti-terrorism raids in our history to stop an alleged Islamic State plot to behead Australian citizens.
Quite direct exhortations were coming from an Australian who is apparently quite senior in ISIL to networks of support back in Australia to conduct demonstration killings here in this country.
No one has yet been found guilty of anything, but these raids should finish one stupid argument and start another important one. Now, the stupid argument is that the Islamic State is somehow no real threat to us. Some Labor MPs, for instance, were claiming the recent talk of terrorism threats was just a government stunt.
It's hyping it up and it's looking for opportunities to try and scare the Australian public and to distract everyone from the budget.
It's a classic case where this government is seeking to get away from any discussion about real budgetary problems.
Leftist academics and journalists claimed the Islamic State was interested only in taking over Syria and Iraq, not in attacking us here.
This is a movement on the other side of the world that seems to be importing people rather than exporting them.
The Greens claimed we'd only really become a target if we did go ahead and bomb the Islamic State.
By going in after the United States, that will enable those jihadists to ramp up the rhetoric and ramp up their recruitment.
These raids put the lie to all of that. In fact, our intelligence agencies say they intercepted messages from an Australian commander with the Islamic State, Mohammed Ali Barilai, to supporters back in Australia telling them to kill someone here. There was also intercepted chatter about targeting Parliament and the Prime Minister. The danger? ASIO knows at least 22 Australians who served with jihadists in the Middle East, and they're now back here. Plus, we also have hundreds more hotheads marching in the street for the jihadist cause.
The solution is jihad! The solution is jihad! You can never stop Islam! You can never stop Islam!
Now note, all of this, the threats, the plots, all of it, has happened before we've lifted a finger against the Islamic State. We are a target already. And while the Islamic State is left to grow strong and allowed to train Australians like these guys, we are in growing danger. So the threat is real. That argument is now over. But here's the one we should start, about our immigration intake. Listen to the Labor leader this week.
Before today, there have been 4 major terrorist attacks on Australian soil that have been disrupted.
Now, those 4 plots, plus this week's, all involved Muslim Australians. The alleged instigator of this latest one, Barilai, is from an Afghan family we took in as refugees. Now, I accept the vast majority of Muslims here are good citizens who want peace. Just last weekend, thousands of Muslims attended a barbecue in Lakemba to protest against jihadists, and good on them. But we also have others who preach hate, whose leaders preach hate.
ستسمعون وترون ما لا يسركم بإذن الله عينا بعين ودما بدم وتدبير بتدبير.
In fact, some extremist leaders even claimed this week's raids were unjust. The government was just picking on Muslims, so watch out.
Even if a single bomb went off in this country, even if 1,000 bombs went off in this country, all that it will prove is that the Muslims are angry.
Is this what mass immigration from the Middle East means? More risk of being beheaded, of being bombed? So, while jihadism remains this threat, Labor's latest plan to actually increase immigration from the Middle East just seems reckless.
When we talk about humanitarian assistance in Iraq and Syria, perhaps, and I'll be having further discussions with my Deputy Leader, Tanya Plibersek, and others, perhaps it's time to discuss, do we take more refugees from these countries?
More? No. Let's instead destroy the Islamic State so Iraqis and Syrians don't need to flee their own countries. And so we need not fear to live in our own. Coming up, how do we defeat the Islamic State? I talked to a general who fought their kind before and won.